Hey everyone, Bill Lethman here for Money Evolution. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some recent changes that just passed Congress that could affect some of your retirement accounts. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the SECURE Act. Now the SECURE Act actually is an acronym. It stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement. I had to write that down and make sure that I was reading that correctly because it is quite the acronym. But this is something that just passed at the tail end of 2019, and many of these changes are going into effect here in 2020. So always here on the channel, I don't ever like to jump right into something like this. I like to let the dust settle a little bit, make sure we understand all of the new rules and regulations before I just come on here and make a video. But by now, I've had actually quite a few conference calls that I've been on where I've heard different experts talking about this and what the impact is. And it really affects a couple of things. Wall Street Journal put a couple articles out here recently. Significant changes are coming to retirement plans. They also had this one: Congress passes sweeping overhaul of retirement system. And it just kind of goes to show you how some of these journalist avenues, they really go out of their way to really make this sound like this is something really huge. And in reality, I don't really think any of these changes are all that significant, but there are a couple that I definitely want to make you aware of, some things that we've actually been talking about here on the channel here for quite some time. And with this new change, some of the things that we might want to be a little bit more proactive about. So even though the Wall Street Journal think these are sweeping overhauls, there's really just a couple of key things that we want to talk about here. So I'm going to actually switch back over to my whiteboard so we can take a little bit of notes and jump right in. But probably one of the most significant parts of this is they actually changed some of the rules on the required minimum distributions. And again, that's something I've talked about pretty extensively here on the channel. RMDs are those mandatory distributions you have to take from traditional retirement accounts after reaching age 70 and a half. And so one of the things we've talked about is kind of looking ahead towards that. If you're not at that 70 and a half level right now, look at the money that you're currently contributing into those traditional retirement accounts. Look at what some of the forecasted growth is on those accounts, and you can kind of put some estimations together as to how much money you might need to take out of that. What that does for a lot of people is potentially push them up into a higher tax bracket. So the SECURE Act actually changed that from 70 and a half to 72. And so one of the things I've always joked about here is the only people that celebrate half birthdays are 5-year-olds and the IRS. So we've got a couple of these. Basically, 70 and a half is those RMDs. 59 and a half is the age you can take penalty-free distributions. So I've said for years, why not just make this 71, or why don't you make it 69 or 59 or 60 if we're talking about the penalty-free distribution. So at least they made that something a little bit easier, so you just know, hey, in the year that you turn 72, now you're going to have to start taking these distributions, as opposed to saying, okay, my birthday is in August, so I turn 70 this year, but I don't turn 70 and a half until next year. It just makes things a little bit easier. So first thing though is, just because you can wait until age 72 to start taking these minimum distributions doesn't mean that you should, or that's the best strategy. Again, one of the things we definitely want to do some planning on is to see if those required minimum distributions potentially are going to push you up into a higher tax bracket. Probably the next most significant thing that they did here was they actually changed something we call the stretch feature of these IRAs or 401k plans. And so basically how these accounts work is, if you have an IRA account or a 401k and you have a spouse and you leave your IRA account to your spouse, they can inherit that as if it was always their account. So there's really, and that really hasn't changed at all. There's no difference there with the way the SECURE Act flows. But if it goes to a non-spouse beneficiary, under the old rules, that non-spouse beneficiary, let's assume it's one of your children, let's say they're 40 years old when they inherit this, they could then stretch out that IRA account over their lifetime, all the way, if they live to be 90 or 95 years old or whatever that may be, they can just essentially take a little bit of that IRA account every year and essentially get a lot of tax-free growth off of that account, and really kind of maybe control that until the time when maybe they need that in their retirement, if they retire at age 65 or whatever. Now, under the SECURE Act, now you have 10 years for a non-spouse beneficiary. So depending on how much money is in your retirement account, let's say it's $1 million or it's $2 million. If you have 2 kids and you have $2 million in your retirement account, each one of those kids, if they're a 50-50 beneficiary, is going to get $1 million. And so what you want to be thinking about is not even considering the growth on that account, but if they just divide that by 10, it means that they're going to have to take $100,000 out of that retirement account every year and pay taxes on it. So whereas maybe the IRS or Congress looks like they're giving you a little bit of a bonus by not having to take that money out for an extra year and a half, here in this case, they're really trying to collect some of that money sooner. So one of the things that we've talked about for a long time, all the money that's saved up in these traditional retirement accounts, and the fact that the IRS really can't get their hands on that money until you start taking that distribution. That's the whole point in the required minimum distributions. And now what they're trying to do is say, okay, hey, you've gone long enough, and if it's your kids or even your grandkids that are inheriting this money, they're going to have to start taking that money out a little bit faster. So under the Secure Act, that's going to be under 10 years. Okay, so RMDs, again, that's probably one of the most significant changes out of the Secure Act. And again, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're planning for those properly. And kind of a little plug here, we have our Wealth Vision Comprehensive Financial Plan. One of the things we do in that is we map out cash flows over a 20, 30, 40-year time span. And what we're able to do is really kind of map out, based on some hypothetical growth rates, the amount of money that you might need to withdraw every year, we can forecast what some of those RMDs might be. We can also forecast what some of the tax rates might be as well. And so that's one of the things we talk about here a lot is, if we're looking at how to balance all this stuff out, is understanding where is your tax bracket today versus where is that tax bracket in the future, and planning accordingly for how much money you're putting into those accounts, what type of accounts you're putting the money into, and ultimately how you're going to take those withdrawals. So again, if you want to learn more about the Wealth Vision Plan, you can go to wealthvisionplan.com. There's a page there where it's got some information about it. You can also click on a link probably right below this video and learn about that as well. All right, so let's talk about a couple of other things here that happened with us. So there were some changes to the 401ks, okay? So one of the things that the Congress and politicians believe, obviously, is with Social Security running into some shortfalls here coming up. We've talked about that in some other videos. And more, without pensions, more people are now relying on 401k plans for a very big substitute to those Social Security incomes and other pension type incomes that they might have. So they're trying to make this a little bit easier for people to participate in, and helping people essentially get more savings built up into those 401k plans. So one of the things is, you may have experienced this, but employers can now automatically enroll you in the 401k plan. So under the old rules, they could enroll you up to as much as 10% of your income into a 401k. So with the Secure Act, they now have that up to 15%. So again, that's something that you want to pay attention to. We think that you should be saving maybe 10, 15, maybe even as much as 20% of your gross income into some type of a long-term saving for retirement. So 15% would certainly fall into that. But if you don't want that, you should pay attention, and maybe you have another avenue for saving that you like better, but understand that your employer now can increase that to as much as 15%. Another thing, annuities. Okay, so annuities, we've talked about a lot here on the channel, and annuities can do a lot of things potentially, but one of the things they can do is potentially protect or preserve some of your principal. Certain types of annuities can do that. Not all annuities, and annuities can get very, very complicated there, but also annuities can provide for some guaranteed income. And so that's one of the things that the Secure Act is doing, is it's making it easier for 401k plans to allow annuities inside those accounts. Now, it may be that your 401k plan offers an annuity, and it may be that that annuity is perfectly suitable for you. But keep in mind, more than likely, we haven't seen how this all is going to shake out, but more than likely your 401k plan is probably going to have one annuity option. And it may be, like I said, a perfectly fine option for you, but what are the chances of that, given the fact that there's dozens and dozens of annuity companies out there that all kind of have different features and benefits based on the age that you are, when you want to start taking that income, whether you want to take that income as a joint income with you and your spouse. So more than likely is that even if an annuity is offered to you in your 401k plan, you should really truly do your homework. Anytime you're buying an annuity, you should do your homework, but understand that just because it's offered to you inside the 401k plan doesn't mean that that annuity is going to be great. Doesn't mean that it's going to be cheap, or doesn't mean, obviously, that it's going to be the best option for you. Okay, so in that Wall Street Journal article that I referenced earlier, United Technologies was one of the first companies to offer an annuity inside of the 401k plan. And they basically said that their annuity had a fee of about 1%. It was also going to be invested in one of their target date funds, which I think had a fee of 0.18%. So at first glance, that doesn't seem like an overly high fee for an annuity. In fact, actually in the article there, they reference that variable annuities can have fees in excess of 3% or more. So what I want you to understand, though, is just because it's offered in your 401k plan doesn't always mean that it's going to be a low fee, or again, that it's going to have those features and benefits that are going to make the most sense for you. In fact, actually, there's a lot of annuities that have a 0% fee attached to them. Now, they may not necessarily have an income or withdrawal benefit to them, but if you're just looking for something that might be more of a pure play, something that's going to maybe generate some interest every year, there are 0% annuities out there. And again, there's dozens and dozens of different annuity companies out there in different products and different features and benefits that you want to make sure that you understand before you get into any annuity, but especially one that's offered to you through your 401k plan. Okay, so a couple more features of the Secure Act here. One of those is they're now going to require 401k plans to estimate your future income that could be generated from the amount of money that you saved up inside that 401k plan. So a lot of companies already do this. In fact, actually, we work with a lot of companies here locally, some of the automotive companies. They already put together some estimates there, basically saying that you have this much money in your 401k, and based on these future contributions and a hypothetical growth rate, we estimate that you're going to have X number of dollars per year to live on. And that's something that's certainly a very nice feature, especially if you're younger, you've got a lot of years yet to retire. Kind of gives you a little bit of a sense whether or not you're on the right track. Sometimes they'll even go as far, at least with some of the estimates that we've seen, to include an estimate for Social Security. Also, if you have a pension, they might throw that in there as well. But keep in mind, that is probably about all you're going to see with that estimate. So if you have an old 401k plan with a previous employer that's not part of that new one, or a big IRA, or your spouse has pensions or their retirement accounts, it may not be inclusive of all of that. So I really kind of, because I get people calling me all the time to say, hey, my plan at work says I'm only 40% on target for hitting those goals that I want. And, and they panic a little bit, quite honestly. And so when I tell them, I say, take a deep breath and, let's look at this. And it's probably because, well, they don't know that you have this big IRA account here, or that your wife or your spouse has an account that they have that they built up some additional savings in. So you want to look at that. They're still working out exactly how to do this. So they're going to need to come up with some type of a standard for how these are going to be calculated, something that's going to be fairly reasonable, not just where every company can kind of do their own thing. Once they come out with that standard, they're essentially, I believe, going to have 1 year to come out with those estimates. And you're going to see that probably in your quarterly statement, or maybe if you go log on to the website there, you might see those estimates there. But again, take that with a grain of salt. Again, we believe you should have your own financial plan. There's some very simple ones that you can get online. You can do a more advanced one like the ones that we do. But you should have this roadmap kind of telling you which direction to go. A couple of other things. They now have changed after age 70 and a half. Under the old rule, you couldn't continue to make contributions to a traditional IRA account. Now, under the Secure Act, you can do that. So that's another little feature there. And according to the Wall Street Journal article, they're actually finding, I think it was as much as 20% of people over the age of 70 were still working. So again, you've got some other rules and regulations there with the IRS, whether you can contribute to a traditional IRA account. You have to have earned income. That's probably number one. But if you do, and you're trying to catch up a little bit and get some more money into those traditional retirement accounts, that could be one way to do that. And they also did a couple of other things. So 529 plans, you can now use up to $10,000 of 529 money to pay off student debt. Which I think is kind of interesting. quite honestly, because if you had money in a 529 plan, you probably would have used that money to pay for the school to begin with. But I guess if you forgot about it, or somehow you ended up coming into 529 plan money later and somehow you had a loan in there, you can take out $10,000 to pay that student loan off, up to $10,000. And also too, if you have a baby or you adopt a baby, within 1 year after the birth or the adoption, you can take up to $5,000 from a traditional IRA account and have it be penalty free. So that's kind of another little thing. If you're starting a family and you've got some expenses with relation to that, you can get $5,000 out. That's obviously even if you're under age 59 and a half. So I think I covered pretty much all of the Secure Act, probably not all of it actually, but anyway, some of the bigger points here. Wanted to come on, make this video as we kind of learn some new details. I know I've got a couple of new conference calls coming up here just in the next week or two where we might start to take some deeper dives on that. That's one of the ways that I stay educated on all this stuff, is that, you know, I am constantly reading, constantly going out to some of these conferences and learning from people that spend a whole lot more time sometimes than I do on some of these things, really literally pouring through the tax code and looking for opportunities. And then I can learn that and then come on here and make those videos for you so you can learn. And it's also stuff obviously that we incorporate within the financial plans that we do for our clients. So anyway, hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the little notification bell. Another thing we're doing here too is we're also starting to get a lot more active on our Facebook channel. So we have a lot of compliance, a lot of rules and regulations, and for a while there we were able to do Facebook Live videos, and then some of the requirements and things changed, and we had a period of time where we couldn't do Facebook Live. That recently changed, and so we're going to start doing those. And so the way we're going to kind of structure things is we're going to have a little bit more formal videos here where we're going to take deeper dives on topics, maybe hopefully have them, hopefully you think so, a little bit more polished video and things, whereas over on the Facebook channel, that's where we're going to come on, do some more quick stuff where we could just have more of a Q&A in some cases, or hey, today I came across a situation, wanted to share that with you really quick. And so that's kind of how we're going to divide that up, have a little bit more of the live stuff over there on the Facebook channel and a little bit more of the long format stuff here. So anyway, tell me what you think. I'd love to hear back from you, and I'll see you back here in one of our next videos. Thanks.